Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the Double-Edged Double Bill. This week we're in the fantasy realm of Ponyo on the Cliff by the Skeleton Man. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will pick numbers between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin. I am Thomas Mariani, and I love ham!
I am Adam Thomas, and in no way am I surprised by Thomas Mariani's statement.
That's true. If the court will submit, Adam did not have a surprised look at all at that statement. But no, welcome everybody to the Double-Edged Double Bill, where every week Adam and I cover a good and a bad feature related to a topic that we've decided on. Though sometimes we should mention our patrons over at patreon.com/DEDBpod end up picking the topics for us, as is the case for this particular week, where we've done a couple episodes about fantasy films, Adam, but we have kind of steered away from it just because we've done it twice already. So we were like, okay, if we're gonna go back to it, because fantasy's all the rage right now, given a new Game of Thrones show recently premiered, and we're soon gonna be getting a new Lord of the Rings show, we figured that maybe it's a good time to return to fantasy, and our patrons ended up going with urban fantasy as the subgenre. If you're unaware, urban fantasy basically, the word urban might imply that it would be in a cityscape, but basically the rough thing we went with is a fantastical concept in like our reality.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Right. Yes. Because with even both of our features, they both take place in less, I would say, urban environments. I think that's fair to say as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. One takes place in, on the cliffs of like Japan, and the other one takes place in wherever America forest.
That's totally America, not Bulgaria, where they shot.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right, of course. But Adam, are you a fan of the subgenre, or were you a bit daunted just at like this particular subgenre, like picking choices and stuff for it?
Yeah, it was a little bit daunting. I mean, I'm a fan of the subgenre, but it's not one that I necessarily ever even think about as a subgenre. And there's so many movies that I've seen that would fit right in there, but it never pops in. Even things like, even though because they're based on comic books, but like The Crow or the Hellboy movies and all that could easily be considered urban fantasy. Most superhero movies could, really, if you really wanted to. But I just didn't want to go that route, so it was a little bit harder.
I mean, I do like the idea generally of some sort of like fantastical creature amongst our world. I think it like creates a fun dynamic, or even the vice versa of like a normal human inside the fantastical. I think it's an interesting kind of like fish out of water story, just of like, hey, let's see if we can get some kind of weird fun off of discovering what the fantasy world is, or a fantasy creature discovering what our real world is. There's a lot of potential for a story like that to either work or be tired and bad.
Yeah, but I mean, even the fantastical element could be something as simple as it's like our world, but it's just a little bit different. Like, I mean, you could even classify a movie we've covered before, I would say, as urban fantasy, Streets of Fire. I would even consider that almost urban fantasy.
You could make that argument. I mean, the thing is, this is so nebulous, and I think it's going to show based on, I would argue, one of ours very definitively fits into that subgenre, and the other one is about as loose as possible.
Okay. Yeah. Ponyo, barely.
Well, I mean, come on. Like, what everyone knows, like, little fish girls exist who, like, go up on land and turn to, like, half chicken people before they turn to humans. That happens all the time in our reality.
100%, but how often do you see a guy in a spirit Halloween costume shoot down a helicopter with a bow and arrow?
I mean, I just saw that the other day. I'm in Florida, so that's a bad example.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, except that yours are on alligators. You're not riding horses.
The alligators are off at the Spirit Halloween. She's like, oh, I love this cloak. It'll be great for the party at Jeff's.
Yep. Yeah, they're shooting at meth vans, not helicopters.
Right, of course. But yeah, so at the end of our last episode, we picked our good and bad urban fantasy picks, and we ended up with your bad pick of Skeleton Man, which we'll talk about first, and then my good pick of Ponyo. the Hayao Miyazaki film. And I said this at the end of our last episode, but I think it's very clear. If you want a real look at how bizarre the double features can possibly be on our show, this is like a key example.
Yeah. This is right up there with one of the best of them. For sure.
I mean, as we'll get into, we might as well start with Skeleton Man.
Company. He couldn't have got out of here without I seeing him. Mary, Mother of God. What are you?
So, Skeleton Man came out March 1st, 2004. Not theatrically, shockingly. But also not straight to video either. This is a TV movie.
Also not the original title either.
That's true, yes. Originally, the film was in production as Cottonmouth Joe. They took that away from director Johnny Martin's vision. And they went with Skeleton Man instead.
Damn studio involvement.
This is a made-for-TV movie, which we haven't covered in a while on the show. We've covered a couple, but it's been a very long time. We usually stick more to On the Edge of Relevance or like media discussion stuff on the Patreon for that at this point. But this is also a Sci-Fi Channel original movie, not sci-fi. Straight up Sci-Fi Channel, which, you know, I have a bit of an admitted like weakness for a bad Sci-Fi Channel original movie in terms of I don't know how many times I was either watching Comedy Central or Sci-Fi Channel, particularly on like a weekend afternoon, and I didn't have anything to do as a kid, and I would just watch these like terrible fucking movies that Sci-Fi Channel either bought or made and somehow thought was good enough to release on their fucking channel, and there was a distinctive quality of badness to these kind of movies.
By badness, you mean badassness.
That's true. I'm sorry. I misread. It's a radness.
Yeah.
There's a bit down the line down there that was just a smudge on my paper here. Yes. But Adam.
Yeah.
This is a movie you introduced me to, and we watched together as a movie night thing. So I want you to tell, shockingly, the many people who might not know who Skeleton Man is. What is this movie, and what is it about?
Okay. All right. This movie is about a sort of Jesus Christ. There's a spirit inhabiting the woods that is the titular skeleton man, and it kills this group of people. So mercenaries, to be exact. So now a new group of mercenaries goes into the woods to find the old team and find out what happened to them, and then they get beset on about the skeleton man, and that's pretty much it. They end up in some weird factory, and the skeleton man's a reincarnated Native American like warrior and blah blah blah. Think Predator, but to the least amount of degree like you can. Like they had the basic story outline of Predator. Like fuck it, we'll just do that, and that's it.
Down to the Skeleton Man sees an infrared, quote unquote.
He sees an infrared, and he can become invisible, and just I mean. And it stars Michael Rooker and Casper Van Dien. And that's literally about the whole synopsis. So I found this movie in a DVD bin. I want to say it at that time, still not thriving, Kmart. And it was one of those that had, it had one of those that was like 7 or 8 movies on like one disc. Where it's like, Night of Horror, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I love horror movies. I've never heard of a single one of these. I think like the most famous one on there was, I believe, another sci-fi original, but Python with Robert Englund.
Oh, classic, yes.
Yeah, classic, great movie. So I bought it because like whatever. It was like $4, during the Halloween season.
Right, and by the way, for those of our younger listeners who might know, this was a common thing. when you would go to like either Kmart's or Best Buy's, places like this, they would have these like packs of very cheap to buy movies on one specific disc that was like, it had like the circular stuff, and like if you went on the menu, it was the crappiest possible menu to get to whichever horror movie.
It's literally just a list that you scrolled down to pick the movie you wanted to watch.
Yep.
And I believe Skeleton Man was the first movie on that disc. So I watched it, and I fell in love instantly. Because the sheer just lack of any talent involved in this, other than the Michael Rooker, who's even Michael Rooker phoning it in. Shocker, Michael Rooker does bad movies a lot. He's great, but he does a lot of garbage.
He's a working actor.
He's a working actor. It was just bewildering to me that this movie would even get past sort of like early tests. You know, they probably didn't do test screenings, but even dailies. If even like a producer of this saw the dailies and was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll keep putting money into this, even though it's probably little to no money, even though obviously they shot in Bulgaria. But it's fucking just so bad on so many levels that it has such a charm to it. This to me is definitely one of those that we talk about so bad it's good movies, and it's kind of always stuck with me to the point to where when you and I started doing our movie nights and then we started venturing into the bad ones, because at first we would only watch good movies or series.
Right.
You know, like, oh, let's watch all the Jason Bourne movies, or let's watch all the Jack Ryan movies, or hey, I really like this movie, we should watch it. And then it started to turn into, let's just watch garbage if we can find it. And this was one that I always knew, like, oh, one day I'm showing Thomas Skeleton Man. And you are so much better for it.
Yeah, this was one of the many times where we've done a search on Tubi, our favorite streaming service.
Oh, it's the best.
Right, that has the kind of bullshit like this.
Yeah, newly released on there, Pig Woman of Detroit.
And, right, that's true. And they've ventured off into making their own original movies, which I love. There's a clip that's been going viral of like one of the Tubi original movies in which a guy shoots this woman at like point blank range. And it's just like him shooting at this woman, and it's just like him wildly flailing the gun with bad, like not even the digital fucking like muzzle flashes. It's just like pow, 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 pow. And it cuts over to her, and she's just like holed up like Swiss cheese.
Yep.
That's the kind of great cinema you'll find on Tubi. Much like, you know, Skeleton Man. And I will say, Adam, I had a lot of fun watching Skeleton Man with you. But in prep for the show, I did rewatch Skeleton Man. And it's not nearly as fun on your own. Skeleton Man's a bit more of a slog, shockingly, I would say.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, you can't watch it by yourself.
No?
No. The first time I watched it, I was with somebody. Watched it with my brother. I watched it with my wife. I watched it with you. Because, shocker, I did not rewatch it for this because I knew I'd have to watch it alone. And I know that would not be easy.
To be fair, also, you've watched it so many times, I think you're the only person that gets John E. Martin residuals.
If I'm not the only person who's seen this more than once, I'd be very surprised. Other than John Martin.
Even then, Johnny Martin, I'm sure, was just like, I don't know, that's fine. Just put
I'm
not gonna rewatch it. I'm not gonna proof it before we put it out.
Fucking clearly. How many times that horse changed color? How many times do they reshoot the same disappearing thing?
How many times do they use the same exact shot of the Skeleton Man? There's a point where he's like awkwardly on the horse, and as it backs up and then it moves forward, that one shot compromises like 10% of the movie.
1,000%. And his cloak changes texture constantly. I love the eagle. Might be my favorite thing in the movie.
Yes.
Miniature shots of the hawk and the eagle. Oh, I love it.
With particularly the same exact sound effect where, like, every time I heard the sound effect, I was like, is the Colbert Report starting?
Yep. Mwah, chef's kiss. Great stuff. And he has a medieval knight sword for some reason. The Skeleton Man. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which I guess is the closest you can make this into, like, the urban fantasy element of it. Like, the Skeleton Man himself does kind of look like... Just imagine, like, the most dime store possible Skeletor. Like, to where you would buy it at the dollar store costume department. And it would just say, like, Skeleton Man. That's what it really fucking say.
Yep, Skeletor. Picture it being a costume based on the Masters of the Universe movie of the 80s. And they bought it then, and they're using it now. Like, that's how dime store bullshit this costume is.
Right, it looks like it's aged, like, about at that time, like, 25 years.
It's glorious. So, Michael Rooker, he's being Michael Rooker. Casper Van Dien is another one of those actors who's not good. Like, even in Starship Troopers, to me, he's the weakest link of it, out of the entire make. And we're talking even him against Jake Busey. And he's also not 18. But the thing is, in this movie, he well, I love him because he does all these shitty movies, and if you like follow his social medias and stuff, he celebrates the fact that he's in these terrible movies. Like he loves it. But probably my favorite bit of this movie is Casper Van Dien's demise,
Oh yeah.
because it feels like he just had to take off. It feels like he's
Right.
like, I'm done. I got to go shoot another like Space Marines movie or whatever.
They call me Starship Troopers 3. They actually want me back, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I'm out of here, guys. Like, all right, just show some shitty footage of him superimposed into a truck, and we're gonna blow up a truck. It's so good.
Right, but what I like about Casper Van Dien in general is the fact that, like, I agree that he's not necessarily the best actor, but it never feels like he's necessarily phoning it in, I would argue.
Yeah, he's fully committed. He's always in it. Like, he's always having a good time. Like, you tell he's there, he's having fun. He's not just, I mean, he is earning a paycheck, but it's like he feels like he's making the most out of it.
My favorite scene of the whole movie is there's a bit where, like, they initially show you all these people who are in this, like, special ops group or whatever. There's a point where everyone, like, just chills out for a bit. It's like, oh, hey, we don't really know each other. Let's introduce ourselves. And they each introduce themselves and have their whole backstory. But just like, yeah, my name's Jane. I was in, like, Forest Ops or whatever. And then it has, like, the actual text underneath it at the same time.
Yep. Classic. That's ridiculous. And then, look, we're not going to touch on it too much, but man, the way they represent the Native Americans in this, particularly the old man they come across.
Oh, man. Well, watching this, like, after Prey is, like, so fucking fascinating.
Yeah. But I will say, at least when it's the flashback, it is all real Native American actors, to the point where even, like, Boo Boo Stewart is one of them.
Right, yeah, which is, we should mention, like, it's, his father is, Niles Allen Stewart, who was actually, like, a professional stunt coordinator, and he's, like, one of the main guys in that flashback. And, yeah, you can see little Boo Boo Stewart just, like, going up, like, oh, and then he gets horribly murdered. And he's, like, I don't know, he's, like, 7. He's very young in this.
By Cottonmouth Joe, who becomes the Skeleton Man.
Right, he's been married a long time ago. Where'd he come from? Where'd he go?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right, yeah.
Fucking Miller owes the rednecks some money.
That's true, but I mean, I would agree that, like, you know, in that flashback, it's at least not as terrible as it maybe could have been. But Robert Miano, as the quote unquote, he's credited as blind Indian in the actual end credits, is one of the more like, oof, man, and especially like, spoilers, Robert Miano, very Italian acting.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. The name kind of gave that away.
What? What are you talking about?
Yeah, just so we're clear, guys. Pepperoncini Alfredo, he's Italian.
There's a horrible history of this with, like, even like the crying, like, Native American guy in those old commercials, Italian dude.
Yep.
Like, it's a weird thing that, like, for some reason, just like, how are we not going to represent these people authentically? Oh, let's get Italians to play them?
Yep.
Because they're a bit darker skinned, I guess? That's the closest thing?
Well, because at that point, they were under fire for, I mean, and this is true, they were under fire for painting just straight up white guys with fucking rouge.
Right.
So, like, okay, we can't do that. We can't do that anymore. So, yeah, just go on to the Luigi's down on 4th. Wait, so why am I crying? Did he throw away my mama's ziti? I don't understand.
That's what you don't hear over that narration.
Yeah, you don't know. All you don't hear is just a lot of oh, I'm walking here.
No, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, so basically, the representation here is quite terrible, in case you couldn't tell. Robert Miano at a certain point is like, oh, you need to offer me something. Just like, here, beans? You want beans, right? Yeah, sure. And it's like the most green can of beans possible. It's like, army beans.
And then we gotta watch him eat them. Like, it's disgusting.
Right, it's like, is that can, like, made out of fucking, like, army men?
Yeah,
like the plastic army, it looks like it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was such a thing, too, as army beans. Which is great.
I mean, I'm sure there are preserves that army folks carry around, but I don't know if they call them army beans.
Yeah, I don't think they call it army beans. Like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe because there is navy beans, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and in case you could tell, we're focusing on stuff like this so much because most of this movie is a lot of people just walking around in the forest, which is clearly Bulgaria. Not any sort of place in the United States whatsoever. And it is just, like, a lot of, like, people walking around saying, like, oh my god, there's a skeleton man. Oh, he's over there. And occasional, very bizarrely gory deaths. I didn't expect for the TV movie.
Yep, occasional. Yeah, it's a lot of them diving behind tree trunks or down trees with the camera zooming in 360 around them and then pointing their guns at random things. That's makes up the bulk of the movie until they get into, like, for some reason, which looks like a water treatment plant at the end.
Right, yeah. And also we should mention we forgot about the opening bit, which is amazing, with the scientists who are like looking at ancient Native American artifacts, and Skeleton Man shows up and kills them.
Yeah, that's a good bit.
Yeah.
No, but again, though, like, look, the fact of the matter is, of course, this was a stretch to put this on, but this is definitely one of those where I've wanted to fit it somewhere on this for so long because I just want to get more eyes on this thing. I want to be validated. I need my own personal validation. This was all ego, but I want other people to see this and be like, oh, yeah, that is kind of a fun time. But watch it with somebody else, for sure.
Yeah, right. Because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of just, like, boring stretches with, like, at the same time, there still are very funny moments. Like, my favorite funny bit in this movie is to stretch out time. There's a bit where Michael Rooker and, like, one of the other mercenaries is, like, walking around, and Michael Rooker, like, trips on a fucking twig and then falls down a fucking hill like he's Andy Samberg and Hot Rod. He's like,
Yep.
oh, God, oh. And then he lands like, are you okay? Yeah, I'll survive.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. There's all supposed to be like military grade mercenaries, obviously because they have army beans, but they're just wearing like shit you can get at the local Dick's Sporting Goods. Like none of it looks legit. They all just look like there's just some thrown together group of people, and of course, like there's the sexy female one and the guy who has like masculinity problems. It's such a cliche bottom barrel like character archetypes it's just such a joy. It's such a thrill.
So many moments where someone encounters a skeleton man and completely loses any ability to like shoot. Like in the opening bit I was talking about, there's a bit where one of the woman scientists is like, oh my god, he's after me, he's following me. And one of the construction workers is like, oh, hold on, I'll help you, I have a shotgun. And the skeleton man shows up and he has like stormtrooper fucking aim, where it's just like, pew, pew, like it goes every other direction. And the skeleton man just like goes up to him and like murders him immediately. He's just like, ugh, falls on the ground dead. A lot of that happens.
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, these mercenaries got these supposed high-tech like automatic rifles and they're just plugging away at the forest and they can't hit shit. But this thing with a bow and arrow is just taking out airplanes and helicopters and whatever the fuck else while on horseback on the left.
Right, yeah, that is another great moment, is the skeleton man, like, encounters the helicopter and a guy shooting. He shoots the helicopter guy off first, and then shoots the helicopter, which makes it fall, and, like, with very bad stock footage, crash horribly.
Oh, it's the best. Isn't that great stock footage? Isn't it wonderful? I mean, the quality of it is clearly from, like, a 60s movie, maybe
Right.
70s. Oh, mwah.
Like, I'm sure it's also in an episode of, like, the Incredible Hulk TV show.
Or it's Toonces, the driving cat.
Right.
But it's just great. The same, because they just fill a screen with Fireball at that point. And they do the same thing at the Casper Van Dien crash. And it's just great.
Yes, and there's, of course, a lot of great bits. Like, you mentioned the water treatment plant they go to, which is, like, the big research facility or whatever. And it's a lot of people, like, come to Skeleton Man, like, hey, where's your key card? And Skeleton Man throws him over the railing. He's like, oh!
I know.
Doing that.
Yeah, I know. I love the idea that they think he might work there.
Hey, you're the new hire. Welcome to the fucking program. Ah!
Yeah, you must be Dr. Tim. Hey, oh, God!
Let me show you where the donuts are. Whoa!
Look, Sunday is a potluck. Deborah's pregnant again, so we're... Oh, God!
Hey, I have a fantasy football team. I don't know if you would. But yeah, there's a lot of that leading up to Michael Rooker facing off against him in another sort of like hilarious like shoot 'em up sequence that happens there. And especially even like the ending of this movie is so bizarre, where Michael Rooker's like walking down just like, well, it looks like I did it. Show's over. Immediate credits. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess the show's over. And then wait, it reverses like it's a VHS. And then it comes back and Skeleton Man's like on another horse. Just like, oh, he's coming back. And then the credits start up again.
Yep, they pull a little bit of funny games at the end there.
That's true. Michael Pitt was secretly behind this movie the whole time.
Yep. So fucking stupid. But the thing is, though, back in the day, like with these type of movies, if it even did okay, they would make a second one.
Right.
So that's probably why they did. They're like, oh, if anybody watches this, Skeleton Man Part 2 coming.
Spoilers, there is no Skeleton Man Part 2.
I know. We should make it. We could just use our monthly Patreon budget. That's enough.
I don't know, we have to ask Johnny Martin if he'll give up those great rights to Skeleton Man for his vision.
He would do it. Just buy him a Subway sandwich.
I'm sure that's about the price, yeah, just like,
Yeah.
give me like $6.50.
Yeah. No, dude, we're getting you the 6-inch. No. All right, I'll have a cold cut trio toasted. Absolutely not in the cards, buddy. Cold. No. All right, I'll do it.
It's not even cost extra to toast it. I know, but we don't care enough.
Yeah, no, not doing that, buddy. Gotta get the chips and the cookies? No, come on, man. All right, I'll fucking take it. Fucking
Johnny, if you're listening, we love your film. We appreciate you so much.
I love it, but I bet I'm not too far off.
But Adam, so I'm curious because like with these sort of like sci-fi channel original movies, the way they've evolved since this one has come out, it's a lot of sort of like your Sharknadoes, your other ones that are trying to more be purposely bad, which are famously ones we don't appreciate as connoisseurs of good cinema. What do you think separates something like a Skeleton Man from one of those more like winky and nodding kind of ones?
A, the lack of budget. Where Sharknadoes might not be good, but they definitely got a better budget than this movie. And B, the Sharknadoes are trying too hard to be winky and like, hey, look how clever you are. It's Mark Cuban, huh? And you're like, I don't give a fuck if Mark Cuban's in your movie. Where this one, it's like, it's done in such earnesty that makes it terrible. You know, it's just it's taken so seriously, and that's what makes it fun. It's the no winking, the no like, hey, check it out, like listen to our fucking badass, like clearly free music on the internet guitar riff score. You know, like check this shit out, man. This fucking cool. He was a Native American who killed his whole tribe, and now he's a crazy ghost thing. And you're like, oh, all right, yeah.
Don't you love the great mythology we've built up with Skeleton Man? You're just like, yeah, but yeah, sure, Johnny.
I guess,
Johnny,
sure, man. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I can absolutely kind of pinpoint the switch where sci-fi started getting a little bit more serious with their movies, like where they really started to put money into their productions and stuff. I honestly think it was probably Marvel's Man-Thing.
Right, which was around the same time, wasn't it? Like around 2005 or so?
Yeah, probably about 2006.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also probably has a lot to do with the fact that like they would get more people who would like be shooting like lower budget things. Like Johnny Martin, interestingly, like looking up his career, he has so many credits doing stunt work. Well, prior to this, like as early as like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or even in Titanic, like he's a guy who clearly like has been doing stunt stuff for so long and like wanted to make a movie. And I love the idea of like once again one of these guys was just like, I've been around movies since I can direct a movie, and he directs this movie, and even the stunt work doesn't look great necessarily.
Directs has to be in quotes, right? Like it's in air quotes. He directs this movie,
right? He directed people where the craft service table was.
Yeah. Hey guys, go try the ham roll-ups. But it's just, yeah, and that's the funny thing about it too. He's a stunt, actor and whatever, established stunt actor, and you've seen that happen, all the time where stunt performers, become directors. Even as like nowadays, like Chad Stahelski, who's doing like John Wick, and he was a big time stunt guy forever. And he's transitioned into really knowing how to shoot action and shoot fight scenes and stuff like that. And, obviously that's what made those movies the most successful. Where this guy, he has no idea where to put his camera. He has no idea how to stage an action scene. He has no idea how to create tension through action. No idea. No clue what he's doing.
But there's more of a charm to that as opposed to like a lot of these other like more recent Sci-Fi Channel movies definitely have sort of a polish to them, where it's like, okay, this isn't incompetently made, but it's trying to make it seem like it's more incompetently made on this lower budget, therefore it feels disingenuous. Versus this does not feel disingenuous.
No, it feels amazing. It's great.
Really great. But you know what? We have a whole other movie to talk about, Adam, so let's do our final thoughts. If you can summarize it all about your beloved Skeleton Man.
Like I said, it's a terrible movie. I would never sit and be like, oh, you got to see it. It's great. It's great. Not even like people do, like what we talked about recently with like Troll 2, where like it's the best, worst movie. Like, you got to see it. You got to see it. It's bad. It's really, really bad. But you get with your buddies or, a family member you like to watch crappy movies with or whatever, and maybe have a couple drinks or something else and watch it. You're going to have a good time. There's no question you will have a fun time. So for that, it's always been endearing, and that's why I love it.
And I will say that, like, I agree definitely with that element that, like, if you're gonna watch it with, like, somebody else who enjoys watching a bad movie. But more crucially, if you can watch it, like, on Tubi, definitely do so, because you definitely need those commercial breaks just to kind of, like, commiserate with your person. But, like, so what the fuck are we watching? What is going on? Who is the skeleton man? What is happening? Like, you need those breaks to calm down a bit. And plus, it creates the ambiance of being, like, on Sci-Fi Channel, surfing through and, like, finding this at, like, I don't know, probably 2:30 in the morning on, like, a Saturday evening. After you've come back from the bar and you're like, oh, God, I can't sleep. Let me watch something on Sci-Fi Channel. This fits that kind of thing perfectly. But let's get into arguably a more prestigious film, Adam, some might say, of Ponyo.
Sasuke, come right back up, okay? Okay. Huh?
You never know when you'll meet someone
A goldfish.
who will change your life forever.
That was weird. Mom! A goldfish! I think I'll call her Ponyo.
She wasn't like any other fish.
She might be magic.
This fish
I will be a human too!
is getting her wish.
Huh? Mom! She's a girl now!
On August 14th,
I can't believe it. She's turned into a human. I'll need to ask for her mother's help now.
What's wrong?
I've never seen the ocean like this.
Walt Disney Studios presents
What is that?
a Studio Ghibli film from Hayao Miyazaki, the Academy Award-winning director of Spirited Away.
Let's go! Ponyo, you're amazing!
So Ponyo came out July 19th, 2008 in Japan, though this came out, I remember, in August of 2009 in the States. This is a Hayao Miyazaki film from Studio Ghibli. He's the same director who did, like, Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, and My Neighbor Totoro, a bunch of, like, classic sort of anime films in their own right. And we've talked at him that we're not necessarily the most well-versed in anime, but we both do really love a good Miyazaki movie.
Yeah, dude, he's great. He puts out works of art. Spirited Away is hands down my all-time favorite animated movie, period. Not just even Miyazaki or Ghibli or anything like that. It's just a masterpiece. And, he's just able to display just the utter brilliance of youth in these kids and the innocence and sort of all that. And it just works so masterfully. And it's so adorable. Like, the character designs are great. The voice acting, even in the English dubs, is usually top-notch. He's just a master.
Yeah, we should mention, the version at least we were able to watch is on HBO Max currently is the dub, which that was the thing is, around the time, like, when Miyazaki's movies were being released by Disney, they would have these big celebrity cast-filled dubs that, I think most of the time they can be a bit distracting. I would say Ponyo is one of the better examples of how they're well utilized, with a bit of a plot synopsis maybe first before I go into that. This is the story of Ponyo is the titular little girl who lives under the sea. She's a little fish girl, and she wants to, go up to the surface. Basically, it's very much like a Little Mermaid parable of sorts, where she goes up to the surface after, like, escaping away from her dad, who's voiced by Liam Neeson. In the American dub, which is interesting given she disappears and Liam Neeson has to find his daughter in a different land. It's the best taken movie, technically. Little Ponyo, who's voiced by Noah Cyrus, little sister of Miley Cyrus, goes onto shore. She is found by Sosuke, who's the little boy voiced by Frankie Jonas, the other Jonas brother. He's like, oh, let me get her out of this little bottle she's in. He breaks the bottle. He hurts his hand. He's like, oh, no, I got cut. She proceeds to heal his hand by, like, sucking on the cut, and thus that heals his wound, but also she gets a taste of blood, which means that she starts getting a taste for human in terms of she actually wants to become a human. And there's all these conflicts that happen because, like, her father and mother under the sea kind of want to protect her, but at the same time, she wants to like hang around with Sosuke on land, even though like this conflict is causing like tsunamis to happen because the sea is searching for Ponyo again. And yeah, it's like I said, a Little Mermaid riff of sorts, but it's a beautiful little story. It's very cute. It's very much a kid's movie, but in a way that like even an adult can watch and just be so enraptured with these little kids and how they interact. Like you mentioned, Hayao Miyazaki does such a great job of like portraying kids in a way that feels like realistic, but at the same time they're definitely weird kids. Like I love Sosuke is like when he calls his mom Lisa the whole time, but at the same time he's like very respectful of like she works at an old person's home that's right next to this little daycare center, and he always like goes over and he like helps out with all the old ladies and stuff like that. But even then, like his interactions with Ponyo, where he's just like trying to teach her what the surface life is like, and she's incredibly inquisitive, even as like a little fish person. And as time goes along, she transforms and stuff like that. I just love the curiosity that these children have. It's so sweet and enrapturing, and it reminds you of like what it was just to be a kid in general, with like that fascination, or even just a complete lack of any kind of understanding about something like being so off the wall that it's like frightening. Like the bit where when Ponyo comes onto the shore, and whenever like she comes up, like the sea sometimes like tries to get Ponyo back, and it's personified by like waves with weird eyeballs, and it looks like these kind of monstrous creatures trying to get her back, and then disappears. And Sosuke witnesses this, and it's like, huh, that's weird. Anyway, this little fish girl, like, he doesn't even process it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking great, dude. It's so sweet. Like, it is loosely based on the same story, obviously, of Little Mermaid. I mean, clearly the comparisons are there, but it just takes it to such a different sort of sweet, cute, even more child-centric level. I watched this with my daughter. I told her, hey, tomorrow you and I are watching a movie together. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm okay. And throughout the entire runtime, which is not a very long movie, but throughout the entire runtime, I would glance over at her, and she just had the biggest, dumbest smile on her face. Like, she just ate this thing up, and she literally just kept saying how cute it was. This is so cute. This is cute. This is cute. She absolutely loved it. I heard belly laughs come out of her a couple times, especially with things that Ponyo did, the actions she would take, or when she ate the ramen and like looked like she was about to pass out because she was so full. Like she got a laugh out of that. She got a laugh out of with her toes, where she was like moving them like a hand. Like there was a lot of laughter and sort of wonderment there in my kid's eyes, and that's when you got something special. Because even some mainstream Disney movies that have come out, I watch it with her, and she's kind of like, oh, it's good, and it's almost like she likes it just because it's Disney and because there's princesses and stuff like that. So it's almost like, well, I'm going to say I like this, whether she likes it or not. I like it. But this one, it was one of those where I've watched with her. There's been a couple of them, but this one, she watched it, and you could genuinely tell, like, she was totally into it. Like, hook, line, and sinker, loved the movie. Would watch it again, like, type of deal. Which I'm not opposed to. I'd rather watch this again than, even though we've talked about Red Panda and I really liked it, I don't want to see that fucking movie again. Good God.
You mean going red? Turning
red. What did I say? Red Panda?
Red Panda.
Whatever. That's what she calls it. So, Red Panda. But
retitled. Officially retitled.
So for her to get into things like this and me be able to like sort of show her other things, other than just mainstream animation, mainstream Disney. And, obviously they got to be age appropriate. That's one of the major problems with navigating things like this, because it's not easy to find a super age appropriate movie for a 6-year-old girl. Whereas Disney, you're pretty much on the safe side most of the time. And Pixar, same way. But like, it's kind of hard to navigate those minefields. But this, if anybody hasn't seen this and you got young kids, especially young little girls, I would say, they're going to love it. Like, I can't see any little kid not liking this movie.
Yeah, I would say Studio Ghibli has a fair amount of those, where, I mean, some of them might be a bit more in the PG range necessarily than others.
Yeah, I tried Spirited Away with her.
Yeah, that feels like a bit slightly more adult.
Yeah, she was into it for like the first 10 minutes, and then she's like, I don't like this. What's going on?
I would say one that fits more in a similar vein to this would be like My Neighbor Totoro. My Neighbor Totoro is also
Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, I could see that as well. But I'm just saying, in terms of like My Neighbor Totoro has a very similar vibe about like very little kids encountering like these mysterious weird creatures that are like suddenly show up in the middle of their backyard. But even with Ponyo, what I love also is that it's so much more of like a sweet, intimate story about like two little kids just becoming friends. I just even love that element of it, where Ponyo is so fascinated by like, oh, the surface world and everything, and Sosuke is just like, Ponyo's just like a fun person. I love being around her so much, and I love the fact that like everybody gets so on board. Like even Lisa, the mom, when Ponyo, she's initially introduced her as like, oh, it's my little goldfish Ponyo, and later she shows up as like a little girl that's just like walking down the fucking road, and it's just like, look, it's Ponyo, my friend, and Lisa for a second is like, what? Well, okay, let's go ahead and go inside and we'll eat ramen together, and it's like, it's very sweet.
Yes, and mid-transformation, Ponyo is one of my favorite character designs ever.
Yes.
Where she's, if you'd ask a little kid to draw a chicken, what the legs would look like, it's so fucking cute.
Right, but it's especially just like the animation also is so gorgeous. Particularly, like I love any of the shots, or it's Ponyo either in that form or even her little girl form, just running along the waves as they're going. Like she encounters the dad character, voiced by Matt Damon in the dub. Also another like bizarre like sun casting, but like all those shots of like her just casually running along with the waves, like she's fucking Jesus on water. It's like it's so gorgeous to see. I love the look of that, or even like the waves, the way that they're captured, where they have like the sentience to them, like when they're chasing down the car that like Sosuke and his mom are in, or even just like small stuff. Like I love how they integrate like the pollution element into this story, where it's just like it's a background detail, but at the same time they very much comment on the fact that just like, oh, humans are disgusting and they're invading our waters and just putting filth in it and all this other stuff. Like it does such a great job like building this world without like really laying thick on you stuff about like the characters or like the environmental message or anything like that. It just all like feels so much of a piece.
Yeah, and I love all the creature design. I love, obviously the movie's based in fantasy, as we know, but even like all the other under the water creatures, for the most part, at least the feature ones, are all original, like sort of weird designs and things like that, and it totally just fits into the world of the story we're telling, and it just makes it that much richer because, you know, in an animation movie, for it to have scenery and, you know, creature designs and other characters besides our main sort of cast that are just as fascinating and interesting is a hard feat to really pull off, and this one really, really does it.
Yeah, particularly I love Ponyo's little sisters, who are just like the same little like goldfish sort of appearance that she initially is, and how they all have like the same kind of like vocal range, just like oh, like the noises they make. It's so cute just to see them, especially like whenever Ponyo like tries to escape after her dad's like, no, you can't go back to the surface world, it's forbidden, and she like creates that hole in the little like bubble that they're in and causes like all the water to like spurt up, and Ponyo's just like causing horrible chaos in this little environment, and she just doesn't give a shit. She's like, she wants to get out here for Sosuke. Because she loves Sosuke. And she loves ham.
Yeah, loves ham. She's having a blast, dude. One of the cutest things maybe ever that I've seen in a long time, or even in this movie, is that scene when, you know, Lisa and Sasuke first see Ponyo running up the road, and she runs right between Lisa's legs and just jumps on Ponyo. I mean, to the point where she's even got her legs wrapped around him, and he's holding her, and he's like, oh, what the hell? And it's just so cute. It's so cute. The character design, while simple, is just perfect. It's so adorable. And like even the end bit, you know, with the bubble where she makes herself land on his face and then she's floating above him. Like, it's so cute.
There's a point where they are stuck at home and Lisa has gone back to her job, and the next morning she hasn't come back, and the water's all the way up at, like, they live on the top of the cliff, Sosuke and his mom, and they wake up the next morning, him and Ponyo, like, oh my god, the water's all the way up to here, we gotta go search for my mom. And Ponyo uses her magic to make, like, the little toy boat into a giant boat, that they have, like, a giant candle that makes it go forward, and they encounter that couple with the baby. I love all the stuff with Ponyo and the baby. It is so cute where she just it's like this, you know, a toddler age kid encountering an infant and realizing, like, okay, you're smaller than me, and I want to make you a bit happier, because she keeps looking at this baby, and there's nothing more fucking funny to me than that little baby giving her the mean mug look.
Love it.
And the mom's just like, oh, my baby likes you. And you look at this baby just like, what the fuck are you looking at?
Absolutely love it. And then they start doing the thing like you could do with your dog, where you, like, slowly close your eyes and the dog will slowly close its eyes. Like, they start doing that to each other. It's just, it's amazing. It's so adorable. And I just love, you know, the fact, like, the mom grabs the soup and she's like, that's for her! Like, Ponyo's so mad. And then she has to explain to her, like, hey, well, you know, if I have the soup, then it'll help me be able to, you know, create milk to feed her. Is that okay? I guess. Like, it's just, it's really, really sweet. That's the thing about this movie. It's sweet.
Yeah. It's another one of those things where, like, much in a weird vein to Skeleton Man, it's very sincere, but in this case you have a great artist like Hayao Miyazaki making this initially, like we said, silly concept of like, oh, a little fish girl falls in love with a human boy, and it like creates so much like artistry and beauty to it. Like any of the times we see like just the weird designs, like the Liam Neeson dad character. I love his design with like the weird like sideshow bob hair and his pinstripe suits and stuff. And he encounters his wife, who is this giant goddess of the sea, voiced by Cate Blanchett in the American dub. And like all those scenes are so gorgeous, where it's like this little weird pensive pencil cartoon man against this giant gorgeous goddess of the sea who's just like, hey babe, how's our daughter doing?
I know, I love it. It's like, hey, we don't spray weeds around here. What? This isn't for weeds. This is top of the line ocean water. If I don't spray it, I'll dry out. Hey, get back here! And then they take off. Because at first, even my daughter's like, oh, he's the bad guy. I'm like, he's not really a bad guy. Like, he is, but he thinks he's doing the right thing. Like, it's very bizarre. He loves his daughter. He wants his daughter back. Like, it's hard to call him a bad guy.
Well, that's what I love, too, is with Miyazaki movies, there are rarely bad guys, quote-unquote. They rarely have, like, overt villains. They just have people who, like, interact with each other in ways where just, like, one has, certain motivations the other one doesn't have, and nothing is, like, sinister about it, necessarily. There's just, like, a real, earnest human emotion. It's like these characters interacting with each other. So where you get where, like, Ponyo's father's coming from, and the same you get where, like, Lisa's coming from, when, like, she's kind of, like, concerned parent in the similar vein. But, with more minor concerns. But, like, Sosuke, get away from the cliffs. Or stop bothering the old ladies, who I love all the old ladies.
Yep, they're great.
And I love, especially in the American dub, they're voiced by, like, Cloris Leachman and Lily Tomlin and Betty White. And they're all very sweet, just like, oh, Sosuke, you're such a little gentleman. When he comes over.
Now, I know that voice sounds familiar. It sounds like Sosuke. But he's in school, so it couldn't be him. He's like, no, it's me. Oh, good. I thought I was going crazy. Yeah, they're great characters. I mean, that's the thing. The movie's populated with just goofy, weird-looking characters. Like, it's great. And one of my favorite parts, even with the mom, is when she's so pissed at the dad.
Yes. And
she's just rapid-firing, well, at least in the English dub, bug off to him.
Right, with the symbols, because Sosuke's dad is off on a ship, so they do, like, the, I guess it's, like, Morse code with, like, the lights. And they're going back and forth, and he's trying to, like, apologize, like, oh, Mom, Dad says that you're beautiful, and she's just, like, on the bed, like, no, I don't want to fucking talk to him, that piece of shit. And then she goes over and says, bug off. And it is very sweet. Also, a shout, Tina Fey's voice in the American dub is very good as the mom as well.
See, to me, Tina Fey, she's good in it, but she's probably my weakest link as far as the voice acting. To me, there's not too much inflection there. Yeah, to me, at least personally, it sounds like she's reading.
I mean, I would say that's more the case with, like, a Matt Damon, who, to be fair, only has, like, 4 lines maybe in this script.
At best, yeah.
Right. But weirdly, that's not even the case with, like, the little, like, Noah Cyrus or Frankie Jonas. Like, they have, they're, like, really, especially Noah Cyrus, like, anytime she's just, like, the Ponyo loves Sosuke. It's, like, so cute.
Yeah, it's great. And like I said, just her, hey! And that ramen, whatever it was, looked fucking great. The king of animated food.
Right. I mean, like, that meme goes around all the time of, like, oh, anime food looks better than, like, actual real-life food. But it's Miyazaki who, like, perfected that. And even with, like, the ramen here, like, even just the way that, like, when the ham is, like, put onto it as little slices, it just looks like, oh, my God, I want to fucking eat that, even though it's made of, like, paper.
The entire banquet and Spirited Away. You're like, oh, my God.
Yeah, and you're much like Ponyo. Like, you want ham. I even love just the small details of, like, when they have the ham sandwich initially, and Ponyo's still a little goldfish, and he's, like, trying to cut out, here's a little piece of bread, and here's a little piece of ham, and she gets the huge piece that's still in the sandwich out.
Yep. Dude, the one thing about this movie, it's just super, super, super adorable. It's full of heart. It's full of just love and the innocence of children, and then the, sort of adult relationships at the same time, wanting to be around your spouse and needing help from your spouse, and and there is something for everyone in this.
Yeah, which I think is why it's also, like, one of the more successful Studio Ghibli movies, especially even stateside. Because I remember this came out in the States in, like, August of 2009, and it was, like, a surprisingly big hit. And I think it's because not just like obviously the, American voice cast is full of celebrities, but more just like this translates so beautifully. Like you could even watch this silently and still get everything.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah. This is one that works on probably with either dub. I think probably I'm guessing I've only seen it with the English dub. I've never watched it subtitled. But again, though, this is a really strong dub. I still think Spirit Away is their best dub, but again, I'm such a huge fan of the movie, so maybe that's why. But I really think this is a super, super polished movie in pretty much every way.
Yeah, even just like down to I love stuff like the actual design of the little town, which is based on a real town called Tamanuro in Japan. Like I love just like the gorgeous look of it, and even just the way certain people interact. Like how Lisa has to keep going through like the shipyard in order to get to fucking town, or even just like we only spend time in like a couple different locations, but they all have their own like little beauty to them. Even something as small as like the little den of a house that they live on the cliff. Just the way that like it looks so cozy and beautiful, and like even just little things like, oh, here's the little light that we plug in, so in case like the power goes out, we have this. There's such like a beauty to every single drip, and it's so weird. But like when you watch one of Hayao Miyazaki's movies, like, oh god, it's so beautiful and gorgeous, and then if you ever see that man actually talk about like his movies or the art of anime, he is one of the most bitter, cynical, angry people about it. Like there's a whole documentary. I believe it's like a Kingdom in the Sky or whatever. That's like about him making The Wind Rises, his most recent movie. And it's a lot of him just like chain smoking cigarettes, just like, what was the point of even doing any of this? Making films was a mistake. I hate fucking people who love my movies. It's just like, Jesus Christ, this guy is like so bitter, angry, and cynical. He makes the most beautiful, heartwarming movies that make you cry, despite the fact that they're very simple, like many times children's films. You're just like so enraptured. Meanwhile, he's just like, fuck all of you.
Yeah. No, he's a wonderful personality. Is there anybody better putting out these type of movies? His movies are masterpieces. And that's the thing. Anybody I know, even people who I know for a fact are not sort of like anime fans or anything like that, love the Miyazaki movies. Like everybody I know who's seen them are like, that's actually really cool. You just got to give it a chance. Like, because that was a big thing for me because I'm not an anime guy. I've never really been into anime. So even that, like everyone's telling me, oh, you got to watch Princess Mononoke. You got to watch this. You got to watch that. And I'm like, fuck. Fine, I'll give it a shot. And I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is actually phenomenal. And then I sort of went down the rabbit hole of his films. And I mean, every single one of them pretty much works.
Yeah, even like the weaker ones, I would still say like have so much gorgeousness to them. Like I'm not the hugest Howl's Moving Castle fan, but at the same time, there are beautiful things about that movie. Just like even the castle itself alone and how it moves around and shit. I swear, we're definitely gonna do, if nothing else, a Studio Ghibli episode at some point.
Yeah,
like a full-on
we have
Ghibli
to.
episode,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
because there's so much to like his movies and how he like puts them out there. But at the same time, maybe there are other ones just we're not aware of because we're not huge anime guys. We have plenty of folks out there who listen to the show who watch anime. If there's similar vein movies, recommend them to us. We'd be curious to see like other ones not made by Miyazaki himself.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch it, but still, go ahead.
Those suggestions will go right in the bin, where they always go. And before we get to final thoughts, just a shout out, Joe Hisashi, who is the guy who does the music for all of his fucking movies.
Oh yeah,
always
phenomenal.
Beautiful, always gorgeous. But even particularly here, it feels a bit different than like the other ones because this is a bit more based on like Wagner operas, which you can kind of hear particularly like in the big sequence where the tsunami happens and Ponyo's like walking on the water and stuff like that. You can hear like that Wagner influence, but still there's such gorgeousness, like particularly during the big finale where they're gonna have the big test of like, oh, does Ponyo love Sosuke? Do we know or whatever with like the mom and stuff like that. That gorgeous like heavenly choir that's playing. It's so gorgeous and massive, and you just feel, even with this small sort of story that's an intimate story about these characters, you feel like the animation and the music just makes it feel so much more expansive.
No, I agree. His scores always work. The thing is, like, you could tell it's the same composer, but he's able to really just put the sense of whimsy in them, and also sometimes the sense of childhood danger, where it's not like horribly bombastic, like chilling, nightmarish score, but there's always just a sense of urgency to it sometimes, and it's a masterpiece.
Particularly like the bit where Sosuke is carrying like the little bucket, and the one old lady's like, "Come on, Sosuke, get over here!" As like the water's coming in. Like that's a moment that like is filled with like a lot of tension and like big, like it feels almost like an action sequence. But it's also just like it's a little kid like running on a fucking wooden pole, but you feel so immersed, like, oh my god, he's gonna make it to the other side.
Oh yeah, it's great. And he's running like halfway sideways and shit like that.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
yeah. But we've gushed about this movie enough, Adam. Any final thoughts about Ponyo?
Like I said, I just think it's an expertly crafted sort of children's fantasy cartoon. There's enough in it for the adults to really sort of latch onto and also enjoy. And like I said, just a pure sense of whimsy I'm watching my kid have while watching it. It's just charming, and it makes you feel good. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. This was definitely one of the ones where I think Spirited Away was also the first one I ever watched, but this is one of the early ones I watched. And I think this one does such a great job of, like, it plays perfectly for a little kid. But at the same time, if you're an adult, you just get, like, so much, like, joy and sweetness out of this little movie about, like, a little boy, you know, becoming friends with a little fish girl. The emotions are, like, so palpable and beautiful and translate beyond any language. And it looks so gorgeous, and the back and forth between all the characters, whether it's in the American dub or in the original Japanese version, which you've also seen, like, it really translates regardless. It just is, like, such a really beautiful, immersive story, and it makes you, you know, love a lot of things. Makes you go back and love childhood, makes you love the ocean, and makes you love ham!
Yeah, Ponyo's a big Mad Men fan.
Yes, of course. So what do you want to hear?
Yeah, so what do you want to hear?
Life is like a carousel of ham. It's nostalgia. It's potent. But let's get to our weekly segment, Adam. The Double Redo. Double Redo.
Double Redo. Double Redo. Double Redo. Double Redo. Double Redo.
That works. So the Double Redo is a segment Adam and I do every week where we, talk about a good and a bad movie related to the topic in question. We recommend another good movie for you to watch, dissuade you from a bad movie not to watch. We have that for urban fantasy, each of us. And I'll go ahead and start off with my two picks for the urban fantasy one. And these are both, I think, a bit loose, once again, on the definition. I think one is more specific than the other one in terms of urban fantasy. But for my good, I have one that skirts a bit more into the horror direction, given it's on Shudder currently. It's a very new release, just came out the week that we're recording this. But it's a movie that is very limited in budget and follows our main character, Wes, who's played by Ron Quanten, who is like on the road after a pretty bad breakup, and he's very disheveled and whatnot, so he's on the road living out of his car, and he stops over at a rest stop where it's mainly there just for, like, there'll be a vending machine and a bathroom, basically. That's all that's there. So he hangs out there for the night, and then wakes up the next morning after drinking a lot, and while he's at the toilet vomiting, he hears a strange voice coming from the other side in the other stall. And as it turns out, this voice belongs to a Lovecraftian god who has trapped Ryan Quanten in this little rest stop, and is saying that, he needs something from him. The universe needs a favor. And it most takes place inside this bathroom, which looks appropriately kind of shitty for what this is. But the back and forth between Ryan Quanten, who's an actor I've seen in a couple of things, can be hit or miss for me, but I think this is one of his better performances, playing off against the Lovecraftian god, who you don't see, obviously, given that's kind of part of the gimmick with those kind of characters, but is voiced by J.K. Simmons himself. This interesting back and forth about, once again, so this urban fantasy element of, like, you go into a rest stop where, like, people just usually, like, piss and shit on the floor, if anything, and you walk in like, there's a Lovecraftian god who's keeping me here against my will to try and obviously get a favor out of me. I think it's a really interesting little story that, despite the lower budget, it creates, like, a fascinating, fantastical environment within this bathroom, and it's great performances from Quanten, but especially, of course, J.K. Simmons, great with just his vocal work. There's a few twists and turns I didn't expect coming, particularly about the Ryan Quanten character, that I was really fascinated by, and it's a tight 80-minute package with credits. So I think, if you can handle, your stories getting a bit gory, this one definitely gets goopy and bloody, to a certain extent as it goes along. It's a really interesting little sort of contained, character-focused movie, a bottle movie, if you will, just about somebody encountering an unearthly being in the most unlikely of places. And then for my bad choice, I have one that definitely fits like urban fantasy to the every single fault possible. I have Bright, which was the Netflix film that, if you somehow forgot this because Netflix released 10,000 movies in the time since this one came out, this was the big sort of like blockbuster attempt from director David Ayer and writer Max Landis. This is like the last big project he was involved with before he was scuttled off the face of the earth, thankfully, in Hollywood. This is the one that is about Will Smith as a cop who is teamed up with another cop played by Joel Edgerton, who's an orc. It takes place in this world where at some point fantasy creatures like seeped in and have been integrated with, regular humans. And it is like some of the laziest, dumbest world building possible. It has so many like of the dullest things of like, oh, what would happen if like orcs were in East LA? It's like, oh, they have gangs and stuff like that. They're a part of that. It's like so dull and lazy and annoying. It just feels like one of these things that Netflix poured so much money into. And it's like, oh, for what? This like really dull, uninteresting, bad sort of fantasy action movie that doesn't even look that great. And despite the best efforts of Will Smith and particularly Joel Edgerton, just doesn't have any like real drama or palpability to the story. It's just a real waste of time and money. And they kept promising a sequel. I hope that never fucking happens.
Okay, well, I haven't seen Glorious. Obviously, you said it just recently came out. And to be 100% honest with you, I wasn't even really aware of it. But it sounds kind of like something that might be completely up my alley, given the Lovecraftian of it all and all that. That's kind of my shit. And also at that running time, I mean, it's worth a watch. Fuck it.
And a Lovecraftian creature voiced by J.K. Simmons, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, he's amazing. Bright, it's funny. When I first saw Bright, I was a little bit more positive on it. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, all right, I like the creature design and stuff like that. Like, yeah, some of the action bits are real fun and blah, blah. I mean, we even had a discussion about it, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I've gone back and tried to rewatch it. And there's still certain parts about it, like particularly Joel Edgerton and even Edgar Ramirez is pretty good in it. But you know what it is? It's the David Ayer of it all, man. And of course, Max Landis, fuck him. But David Ayer, it's like he wants so bad to make these groundbreaking, like sort of inner city gangster movies, and they rarely work. Like, watch The Tax Collector. Oh my God, it's bad. I mean, it's his fascination with this world, which is fine, but you can't do it, man. Like, you can't do it right. It doesn't work. And Bright, unfortunately, just sort of became that type of movie. Just instead of that, they're Latino gangs, they're orcs, or instead of rich white people, they're elves, or instead of like fuck off. It's just lazy.
Yeah, I mean, and especially not to mention that like they have sort of like the mixture of that where there are like occasional like Latino gang guys next to the orcs, and it's just like, oh yeah, man, at least orcs were there at the Alamo or whatever bullshit. That fucking stupid line that's in the middle of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But what about your choices, Adam?
All right, man. So for my bad, I have a movie that is fueled by ego and id. I mean, it is just unbelievable that this movie was not only greenlit, produced with a healthy budget, certain actors signed on for it, and there's even talks of a sequel now. I have the Vin Diesel written starring The Last Witch Hunter, based on his D&D character. It's just so fucking bland and run-of-the-mill bullshit fantasy, Eternal Warrior bullshit. Other than, the first Highlander, I'd say, for the most part. But anytime you've seen it recently, like even in that Charlize Theron Netflix one that came out that was like half of a good movie, like it's a conceit that is so tired and dumb and dull and old. It's like Vin Diesel fucking ejaculating on screen, like, look how fucking awesome I am. Get any movie made. Family. Oh. It's just, I just can't. Nah, miss me with that fucking Last Witch Hunter bullshit. And then for my good, it's also another loose like fantasy one, but it almost relates to what I talked about at the top of the show, where I would call like Streets of Fire, urban fantasy and stuff. And I think this one fits right in there too. Maybe even it's a very stripped down, but it definitely takes place in an alternate sort of world. But it's still New York. I actually have Walter Hill's The Warriors, which I do consider urban fantasy, just with all the different gangs and the looks of them, and just sort of the plight of the whole movie, and just the idea that the disc jockey on the radio knows every one of their moves and it follows it along, and there's this sort of gang hierarchy, and then the can you dig it, and the baseball furies and all that. Like it's this alternate New York, and it's just so fun and dirty and gross, and I absolutely recommend watching just the normal version, not the director's cut. But even then, though, it's a great fucking movie. I love this movie to the point I have a poster signed by James Remar, who played Ajax in it. Anytime The Warriors is on, I'll watch it. And also, one of the best video games based on a movie adaptations ever was put off of The Warriors. Still super fun. You can even buy it to this day on modern consoles and play it. The Warriors is just solid.
I have not seen The Last Witch Hunter. Out of just, I didn't really give much of a shit to see it. I haven't heard great things even from Vin Diesel apologists in general about it. But then, I mean, I've seen definitely The Warriors for sure. And I guess that does definitely fit in terms of like, it's less about like, a fantastical creature coming into our world or a human encountering a fantastical creature, as much just like a fantastical version of, a city that we know in general. And I do agree that I think it works on that level, especially with the different gangs and stuff like the disc jockey who's giving us all the different like updates about like where the warriors are and all that. I think that there's a lot of like great elements that like really builds the world of the Warriors quite well. And I would definitely second, do not watch the director's cut version, because what Adam failed to mention is in that version, there's a lot of sequences in which they'll transition from one scene to the other via bad circa like 2005 era digital animation of like a comic book. Because that was originally Walter Hill's designs that he wanted to make like those transitional elements happen. And maybe if he had done it in 1979, that would have been kind of interesting and different. But in context of like how it's executed in that director's cut, it looks like garbage.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking rough, dude. It's pretty fucking bad.
It takes you so out of the movie, which is such a fun movie to get immersed in. It's just like, oh, what the fuck is this? Why is this here? But let's go ahead and do our, repeat our titles for everybody out there in case you might have missed them, just if you're curious. For my good pick, I had Glorious, and for my bad pick, I had Bright.
For my good pick, I had The Warriors, and for my bad pick, I had The Last Witch Hunter.
And we'll be doing our exit here, but stay tuned for the end of the show. We'll be doing our picking for next week, so stay tuned for that. We want to thank some people like Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used for our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Christian Thor Lally for our artwork. Follow him at Night of Water. That's Night with a K, _of_water, for more of his great stuff. And thanks to our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/DEDBpod, where for just $1 a month, you all get to, pick individual movies we cover or topics we even do, like urban fantasy. You all made sure that we got that as our topic to cover for this week, so thank you very much for that. And also, get to listen to bonus podcasts, like around this time, you'll be able to hear our bonus media discussion episode all about the Phantom of the Opera 25th anniversary recording at Royal Albert Hall, which we recorded as an interesting, bizarre, rambling mess of an episode that's really interesting to listen to.
Yeah, dude, but man, it was fun. It was super fun. It was something that, I'm for in a weird way, maybe surprisingly to a lot of people, super passionate about the Phantom of the Opera, and especially the musical version. And really hate Love Never Dies. So
yeah, it's a bit of a bonus double-edged double bill episode, basically, because we cover both the original movie and the sequel a bit more than we even anticipated we would do with that. But you'll be able to hear all of that if you just contribute the $1 a month and become a patron, which we would appreciate. But you can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at DEDBpod. And you can also send us feedback either there or at our email address, doubleedgeddouble@gmail.com, all spelled out. And for more of me, find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at NotTheWho'sTommy. And I also do some writing at marianithomas.wordpress.com and at film-cred.com. And the week this episode's going up, I will be at Dragoncon. I've promoted this for the last couple episodes, but I want to go ahead and just run down briefly my Dragoncon 2022 panel schedule. As of right now, it's completed. You might want to check your Dragoncon apps to be absolutely sure. You'll be able to find my name and be able to see all the panels I'm doing. But as of right now, that schedule includes on Thursday, September 1st at 7 p.m., I'll be doing a Let's Talk About Godzilla panel over at the Piedmont in the Hyatt Hotel. On Friday, September 2nd at 2:30 p.m., I'll be doing a panel about Severance of Two Minds, about the TV show on Apple TV Plus, over at the Marriott M302-M303. And then Friday at 4 p.m., I'll be doing my panel about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch at the Westin Peachtree 1-2, which the rest of these will also be at that particular location over there on the horror track, including Saturday, September 3rd at 1 p.m., What We Do in the Shadows panel. Saturday, September 3rd at 7 p.m., David Lynch, Lost Highways and Dark Secrets. Saturday, September 3rd at 8:30 p.m., the Candyman 30th Anniversary panel. And finally, Sunday, September 4th at 4 p.m., The Thing 40th Anniversary panel, which I'll be moderating. So that's my schedule. If you're in the downtown Atlanta area over Labor Day weekend, find me at those places. Come say hi. I'd love to meet a fan of the show.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool for any of you who are actually there. I'm not going to be there.
Adam will not be there, no. Well, we really tried to get Adam, but his asking price was too much. 12-inch Subway sandwich. We couldn't allow it.
Yep. Can't do it, baby. You can find me on Instagram at atom_or_adam, ATOM_OR_ADAM. You can find me on Letterboxd at Schwanson, SCHWANDTSON.
And for more of us, please follow and subscribe on places like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other podcasting platforms. If you're listening on Talk Film Society, why not listen to all the other great shows on the network? And you can also dig into our archives and our Podbean main feed for like 200 episodes before we join Talk Film Society. And everything else, if you can't support us monetarily through the Patreon, that's cool. Money can be tight. The totally free way to help us out is to simply rate, review, or share the show around, because that gets us more visibility out there.
Yeah, it's super easy to do. And free.
It's so easy Adam could do it. And sometimes he does.
Occasionally.
But now, Adam, it's time we did our picking, which we should note, because of my Dragoncon, you also have some business to attend to over the course of the Labor Day holiday. We won't be having a regularly scheduled episode next week, just because schedules didn't really work out that well. So what we'll be doing is we'll still have something out there for all of you on that week, the day after Labor Day, where we'll be releasing an episode from behind the paywall from our Patreon, which will be our top 10 robots in movies and TV, which we did last year. We had a lot of fun with, and, gives you a bit of a taste of the Patreon. So maybe it'll entice some people to, pay that $1 and get all sorts of other bonus content very similar to that one.
Yeah, that was a super fun one, too. We nerded out pretty bad over the rules on that one, but it came together really nice.
Yes. So you'll be able to hear that next week. But, we'll still be doing picking, at least for the following week's episode on that, which we'll be keeping, the rotation thing intact. So we'll be another situation where I have the good picks and Adam has the bad for this, just to keep our usual rotation going, as we are wont to do. And it's a very interesting episode for next time, because we'll be talking about an actress's career this time, Miss Viola Davis, who is getting a big movie with The Woman King coming out, which, if you've seen those trailers, it looks pretty fucking dope. I'm pretty excited about that one, honestly.
I'm interested. I don't know what it's going to be, so I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more curious because I've also seen Gina Prince Blythewood, who did that, who did do The Old Guard, the movie you referenced earlier, but also like Love and Basketball, and a few other like pretty fun movies. So I'm curious to see her get like a big budget sort of like historical action piece with this one. And of course, I love Viola Davis. Great actress.
She's fucking great, dude. She's awesome.
Very committed and worthy of a double-edged double bill for sure. And as I mentioned, I have the two good, you have the two bad for that episode about her. And keep in mind that when we do this every week at the end of the episode, Adam and I each assign our two picks, whether good or bad, a number between 1 and 10. And so the other one picks a number between 1 and 10, and whatever that's closest to gets us our good and our bad feature. So, for example, for my two good picks, Adam will pick a number and be like, oh, I'm going to pick number 7 or whatever. And thus I'm like, oh, that's closest to number 8, which at that spot is blank movie, and thus that would be the good pick, and then vice versa for the bad one. But keep in mind we have the Godfather rule. which Adam and I, since May, have had a veto in our back pocket. We both haven't used ours yet, but if we hear, we pick that number and the other guy's like, oh, hey, that's going to mean we'll do this particular movie at this particular number, the other person, if they choose to be like, you know what, I don't want to cover that movie, they can say, actually, I'll take the cannoli. Thus, that choice is gone, and we have to go with whatever other choice is there and available. But I'm curious, Adam, about your bad picks, and I'm sure you're curious about my good. So go ahead. For my good, please pick a number between 1 and 10.
I'm going to go with number 6.
Okay. At number 7, I have a very underappreciated great movie from a great director that involves, Viola Davis and a great supporting cast, like such a huge sprawling ensemble cast that's really tremendous, and I wish got a lot more love when it came out. I have Steve McQueen's Widows.
Ooh, that's a solid ass movie. I watched that based on your recommendation, or else I probably would have never watched it, to be 100% fair. And I think that might be part of the problem, like with the marketing and everything. But that is a solid fucking movie. I will not, sir, be taking the cannoli.
Well, my other choice, at number 2, I have the movie that won her an Academy Award. I have Denzel Washington's Fences.
Haven't seen.
Very good movie, I would say. She won a supporting actress Oscar mainly based on her ability to produce a lot of snot. She cries a lot in that movie. She's got a lot of snot dribbling down, but goddamn, that's Academy Award worthy snot.
She's a good crier.
Very good crier, as we'll, I'm sure, see in our films. But Adam, your 2 bad choices. Very curious where this will go. So I'm going to go ahead and go, on the opposite end of things, I'm going to go number 3.
All right, I picked one that huge cast, got some Oscar buzz when it came out and everything. I've never seen this, but I know that like post Oscars, like just the reception consensually was like, this isn't fucking good. So I have the movie Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close.
Oh, yeah. This is one I only am aware of because it got surprise Oscar nominations despite terrible critical reception. So yeah, I'm not taking the cannoli because I'm just curious to see what this is.
Good, because so am I.
Yes.
And then for my alternate, I think, which is probably the most obvious choice, which I'm kind of glad we didn't get, but I have Suicide Squad.
Oh, good God. Thank God. Ugh.
Not the Suicide Squad.
Oh, right. Yes, of course.
Suicide Squad.
Because that would have been a potential good choice of mine, with Viola Davis in it.
Yes, 100%.
Versus, without the definitive article, Suicide Squad. I just hate that. Movies with such similar titles and such similar premises, and the only difference is of...
Or like, The First Purge. Fuck you.
Right. Yeah, this is a similar situation there.
Yeah.
Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and Widows. Very curious to talk about that double feature in 2 weeks. But until then, everybody, we hope your end of summer is full of joy and wonder and ham.
Yeah. Liam Neeson has a striped suit.